2-7. You got the C's cap on. 2-0 lead for Boston. Has gone pretty much as we expected, except for in the first time ever, Jason Tatum missed a playoff game. He deep bruise in his right wrist. His mom is maybe going to throw hands with KCP or whoever wants to smoke. Al Horford wants to smoke. Cole Anthony's talking back and forth. But all that BS aside, it's been an interesting series so far. The Magic, as we saw, they could make the Celtics sweat a little bit, but ultimately just don't have enough to get over the hump. My thought is just that, it's not really that hot to say, but like Magic just got to do something. It's this, like maybe they are a team that, calls Memphis and says, "Yo, what's up with Ja? Like, what we'll give you picks. We'll give you our young guards. What do you want?" Like, I think that would be exciting. So there, maybe that's it. The Magic are a sneaky candidate for a blockbuster trade this summer. Maybe that's not that hot either, but that's my thought, my take, overreaction. They need to not blow it up, but shake it up.
We're on the same page again. And this is what I was referencing to when I was like, we got to get back to it later in the show. I really think that they don't have a decision to make because Paolo is obviously the guy. And I love Franz Wagner. Like he's awesome. I think he's someone that in a different situation, he could be even better than he's shown that he is this year. And we saw that for a stretch when Paolo got hurt and Franz was kind of doing his thing. But I really, on the same tune as you, like I really think that to get to where they need to be, they need to build around Paolo, and they can get a lot for Franz Wagner because I think there are a lot of teams that would pick up the phone, call in Orlando to try and get him because, it was a small sample size, but it was easy enough to see during that stretch of games without Paolo that he could be, a guy, a number two.
We were talking all-star.
But it's just, exactly. Yeah. And you know what? He honestly, if he didn't get hurt with the same injury that Paolo had right before all-star voting started, he probably would have been an all-star this year. And, I just think that it's a situation where, yes, they could coexist. And yes, they play pretty well alongside each other, but you only have, especially for a team that doesn't have perimeter shooting as it is and has, a surplus of long athletic wings that can defend multiple positions. Like you can't have two guys who are big point forwards who can both play make and they can both get to the rim and everything like that, but they're not knockdown shooters. Like you can sag off of them and you're not really going to be all that worried about it. It's tough to have two guys that are like that. So I really think that in order to maximize what Orlando to get to that next step to where they want to be, I think they have to see what's out there for Franz Wagner and really commit to building around Paolo Banchero.
I started laughing because I was going to ask you, are we talking about the 2025 Magic or 2021 Raptors? Because I started thinking about Scottie and Pascal, which they had to make a choice. And I know it's a little bit different. It's not exactly the same, but you eventually have to make a choice. And I didn't really consider or think about the fact that because like you said, it works between those two guys. But you put a hard cap on your ceiling. They're pretty hard capped on. I think last year was the ceiling. Finishing fourth and maybe getting the advantageous matchup that series last year with Cleveland in the first round. I finished fifth. Excuse me. Could have gone either way. But otherwise, is that really? And those guys are going to get better. But again, are they going to start to cannibalize each other's growth as well? So I'm interested to see that. Got my eye on that, but I agree with you as far as the Paolo thing goes. I don't know if there's anything else to say about the Celtics that we haven't said already, other than get well soon, JT, and hopefully Drew's hamstring situation isn't too bad. It is tricky for an older player, and also we love seeing KP bleed on the court, or at least Joe Mazzulla does. He's the most insane coach in all sports. That's maybe not an overreaction anymore. He takes the cake.
He's an absolute psychopath. Yeah, this is pretty status quo for the Celtics so far early on. Yeah. You got a big Peyton Pritchard and Derek White game in game one. Jaylen Brown had his version of his Kawhi game last night in game two, stepping up big time with JT out. But, I really do feel like there's a lot of chatter and I don't know anything. I don't have, any inside track on how serious JT's wrist injury is. And I really do think that Mazzulla, he likes to manipulate the environment a little bit. So he'll say something, even if it's not necessarily true, just to get people thinking one thing and let their guard down and stuff. But, I really do feel like Tatum's wrist, if that was game two of the Eastern Conference Finals last night, he's not playing that game. He's playing that game. I think they are playing. I think they're taking it easy. They're playing it safe with him, which I think is a smart thing to do because they're so deep that you don't need Jason Tatum to get past the Orlando Magic, with all due respect. It's just the truth. So, let him heal up. It sounds like an injury that will heal pretty quickly as long as you give it time off, and, he'll be ready to go for the next round when they get there. So, like you said, get well soon, JT, and pretty status quo for the C so far.
Yeah, and I think that's the last thing I was going to say. If it was 1-1, maybe different sense of urgency getting it back in there, but you're up 2-0. Even if you not punt game 3, but you lose game 3, you're okay. Like, you're not, just get him healthy. You need him for the next round, because awaiting for you is the Knicks or the Pistons. The Pistons have looked capable of winning this series. They kind of squandered game 1 and then won game 2. What I have for this is that the Knicks are in trouble, whether it's in this series or moving forward. And we talked about this coming into the series, is if they lose, there are going to be some big changes abound with this organization. I think that those big changes maybe don't even depend on this series. I think that this is the last year, and it could be a minor shakeup or a major shakeup, but this is probably the last year of this Knicks as we know it. I think Cat, JB, safe. But as we learned last year with the Cat trade, they're willing to shake things up. And I said it a little bit last week that regardless of, what they do, again, there's kind of a limit, a cap on what they are. I think they need to do something to get back on that tier of Boston and Cleveland. And that the answer is not on their roster.
Yeah, I should probably throw the hat on backwards for this one, but just to hide the C's logo. But I'm saying this like in all seriousness, like as objectively as possible. What this series has told me, and it's been awesome so far, I think the Celtics beat either of those teams in 5 games. Like they are both really talented. There's a lot of talent on both of those rosters, but like you look at the way that the Pistons blew that first game, and like to me, I'm like, the Celtics aren't squandering that opportunity. And then like the Knicks have just been shaky, man. Like Cat had a big first game, but disappeared in the second game. Like Jalen Brunson, the C's have always found a way to kind of contain him because they have bigger guards that can kind of get in his way. I don't want to take away from what that series has been so far, because I think Jalen Brunson is cold as hell. I think that, obviously the flopping and people are kind of getting sick of it, but like, in my opinion, he's basically unguardable. I think he's going to score 30 points in every single game in this series. Like the Pistons just don't have anyone that can guard him. And Asar is doing everything he can, but the reality is like Jalen Brunson's just too smart, too savvy, big body Brunson. Like he's just finding a way to get his. And yeah, like the foul baiting, it's not pleasant to watch, but it's a skill, and he's maximizing that skill. Yeah. And then, to give respect to the other side, like Cade Cunningham is
built for playoffs.
Seriously, like talk about somebody who I had a friend that was a friend who watches a lot of basketball, who was like, this is the first time that I've really like sat down and watched like full Cade Cunningham games. And he is one of them ones. Like he is a guy, and he has shown that. 30 and 10 in both games. 20 and 10 in both games. He had 10 assists in the first game, 10 rebounds in the second game. Knicks don't really have an answer for him either. And I think this series could go either way. It feels like one that, I originally said Knicks in 6. Like I could see it going the distance and go in 7. I don't know if you've changed your stance on where you're at. I would love to take the Pistons outright, and I do think it's possible they win the series. But I am just going to be leaning on the Knicks experience a little bit more to eventually prevail and get them through.
That's what we saw in game 1, right? Lights didn't get too bright for Detroit, but it was like clear, like most of them haven't been there before. And I think that I heard Jalen Brunson clutch player of the year. So we mentioned another award winner, and we didn't get to mention it during the Celtics series, but Peyton Pritchard, 6th man of the year. No surprises there. But anyway, when he was doing his clutch player of the year interview, Jalen Brunson was like, it's really important to start well against this Pistons team, because if you let them hang around, then they're learning these lessons in real time. And we saw them from game 1 to game 2 find themselves in a similar position, but they made the plays that needed to be played. And we kind of said it in jest last week, but it was Dennis Schroeder that made the big play for them. The guy who has been there before, the guy who has made big shots in the postseason before. And that is why they brought him in for that. And people might have maybe rolled their eyes at that and thinking, he's not going to do much in the margins, but this is the perfect situation for him, because I think that Golden State this past year, I think that the Lakers, when he was there, needed him to do too much. And to bring back up a callback real quick, he's your X factor. You need him to be your X factor. You don't need him to be the guy that you need him to show up every game. And it's not even meant to be a knock on him, but I just think that the way his game is and what he does well, he can do those things consistently. And the other stuff, the scoring, the shooting, knocking down big shots like that is nice to have from Dennis Schroeder, just to kind of be that calming force for them. So excited about that. And also Tobias Harris, another calming force. They're calling those guys unks on the team, him and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley. I'm like, yo, these dudes are our age. What are you talking about? But
what's that say about us?
I know that just goes to show how young the Pistons are. Like Ron Holland is 19 and Jalen Duren is 21. It's like, okay, I guess I do kind of get it. Thanks for checking out NBA Sound System Canada on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe below. And find us wherever you get your podcasts. And on Instagram, we have weekly episodes and bonus content throughout the week.